The neighborhood had always been quiet. Too quiet. Every house looked the same, every lawn was trimmed in the same shape, and every morning followed the same routine. People walked their dogs, watered their plants, and smiled like nothing ever changed. But one day, everything changed the moment he brought home a 75-inch TV. The story begins when Ryan, a simple man who only loved movies and peace, parked his truck in the driveway. He had been saving money for months to buy this TV. It was his dream setup. He imagined movie nights, weekends with snacks, and relaxing after long workdays. But as he lifted the giant box out of his truck, he noticed something strange. A curtain across the street moved. Just a little. Enough for him to know someone was watching. Ryan looked up and saw her, Karen. Everyone in the neighborhood knew her. She was the self-declared queen of the HOA. She didn't run the HOA, but she acted like she owned it. Her eyes were sharp, always scanning, always searching for something to complain about. People whispered stories about her, turning people in Ford grass being too green, or trash cans being slightly tilted. And now, she was staring directly at Ryan's new TV box. Ryan tried to ignore her. After all, he hadn't done anything wrong. Buying a TV wasn't a crime. But the way Karen watched him made the air feel heavier, like a storm was coming. As he moved the huge box inside the house, he heard a noise behind him, the sound of footsteps quickly approaching. He turned around. Karen stood there, arms crossed, wearing her signature bright pink visor and a suspicious frown. "What is that?" she asked, pointing at the box like it was a dangerous animal. "A TV," Ryan answered simply. Karen's eyebrows jumped up so fast it looked like they might fly off her face. "A TV," she repeated. "A big TV?" Ryan nodded politely, trying to be respectful. "Yes, 75-inch. I got a good discount." Karen took a deep breath as if he had confessed to something horrible. "You know," she began in her dramatic voice, "our community has noise rules. And noise travels. It can disturb the entire neighborhood." Ryan looked confused. "But, it's still in the box." Karen leaned in, lowering her voice like she was sharing a dark secret. "Big screens mean big noise. Everyone knows that." Ryan blinked. "That's not how TVs work." But she didn't care about logic. Karen never cared about logic. She walked away in a hurry, shaking her head and whispering to herself. Ryan knew from her body language that she was planning something. Something big. He could already imagine her typing an angry email with too many exclamation marks. Still, he tried to ignore it and continued moving the TV inside. But the weirdness didn't stop. Later that evening, as Ryan prepared dinner, he heard faint voices outside. He peeked through the blinds. Karen was standing with two neighbors, pointing at his house like she was giving an emergency safety speech. Ryan couldn't hear everything, but he caught phrases like massive screen, very loud, potential danger, community disturbance. One neighbor looked worried. The other looked confused. Karen looked triumphant. The next morning, Ryan woke up early, ready to start installing his new TV. But when he opened his front door, something was stuck to it, a paper in a plastic folder. Official. Serious. Cold. It was a letter from the HOA. He pulled it off and read it slowly. "You are disturbing the entire neighborhood. Immediate review required." Ryan stared at the letter in shock. Disturbing the neighborhood? How? The TV isn't even turned on. It hasn't even been unpacked. He read the letter again to make sure he wasn't imagining things. But no, it clearly accused him of causing noise problems. He felt frustration rising in his chest, but also confusion. Who reported him? For what? How could silence disturb anyone? He didn't need to think long. He looked across the street and saw Karen again, standing in her driveway, pretending to sweep leaves, but clearly watching him. She gave him a fake smile. A smile that said, "I warned you." Ryan took a deep breath. He wasn't the kind of person who liked drama. He never raised his voice, never argued, and never broke rules. This whole situation felt ridiculous. But he also knew he needed answers. He walked over to Karen. "Morning," he said calmly. "Did you report me?" Karen gasped dramatically, like he had insulted her. "Report you? Me? I would never, unless the community is at risk." "What risk?" Ryan asked. Karen pointed again at the invisible danger. "The TV, Ryan. A 75-inch TV can shake walls. It can cause vibrations. People can feel it 3 houses away. I don't want my windows to crack." Ryan almost laughed. "That's not true." But Karen wasn't listening. She never listened. Her imagination was far more powerful than reality. "Look," Ryan said, trying to stay calm, "I haven't even turned the TV on." Karen narrowed her eyes. "Not yet." There was something chilling in the way she said it. Like she was convinced she could predict the future, and she decided the future would be loud and terrible. As Ryan walked back to his house, he could feel the tension growing. The neighborhood no longer felt peaceful. It felt like he was suddenly living inside a mystery story, one where the villain lived right across the street. And deep inside, Ryan knew one thing. This was only the beginning. Karen wasn't done. She had started something. And she was going to take it much, much further. Ryan spent the whole morning trying to ignore the strange HOA letter, but the words kept echoing in his mind. "You are disturbing the entire neighborhood." How could silence disturb anyone? The TV still sat in the living room, untouched, still wrapped in plastic. He hadn't even cut the tape. But something told him this situation wasn't going away. There was a pressure in the air, like a storm slowly building. And as the day passed, the neighborhood started acting different. People walked slower near his house. Windows opened whenever he stepped outside. A few neighbors whispered behind their fences. It felt like everyone was waiting for something. By late afternoon, Ryan decided he had to talk to someone from the HOA. Someone reasonable. Someone not named Karen. So he stepped outside, planning to walk to the community office at the end of the street. But as soon as he locked his door, he froze. Karen was standing on the sidewalk. Right in front of his house. Like she had been waiting for him. She wasn't alone. In her hand was a small notebook, dark blue, filled with sticky notes and colored tabs. On the cover, she had written in bold marker, "Neighborhood Incident Log." Ryan almost groaned. Karen smiled in a way that didn't look friendly at all. "Hello, neighbor," she said, tapping her notebook like a detective ready to write a crime report. Ryan took a slow breath. "Karen, why are you standing here?" "I'm here to protect the peace," she replied proudly. "And to collect evidence." "Evidence of what?" he asked. Karen flipped open her notebook dramatically. It was filled with messy notes, sketches, arrows, timestamps, and underlined words like loud, suspicious, and possible threat. She cleared her throat. "At exactly 9:37 a.m. today, I heard a sound coming from your house." Ryan blinked. "What sound?" She squinted as if thinking very hard. "It was a soft sound. Maybe a hum. Or maybe a vibration. I couldn't tell. But I felt something." Ryan stared at her. "My refrigerator? My washing machine?" Karen gasped, writing something down instantly. "So you admit there were sounds?" Ryan sighed. "That's just normal house noise." Karen's eyes widened, like she had solved a murder case. "Aha! Exactly my point. A 75-inch TV is not normal house noise." Ryan rubbed his forehead. "Karen, it's not even plugged in." "Oh, please," she said, waving her hand. "Do you think I was born yesterday? Everyone knows big TVs create big problems. My cousin's friend's neighbor had one, and let me tell you, their entire living room shook like an earthquake. That's not possible, Ryan said firmly. But Karen stepped closer, lowering her voice to a whisper. Then why did I feel my floor vibrate this morning? Ryan looked at her shoes. She was wearing huge platform sandals, almost 4 inches thick. You mean, your slippers? He asked carefully. Karen snapped her notebook shut. This conversation is going in circles. I am here on official business. She pulled out another paper from her bag. This one looked even more dramatic, printed in red, bold letters, with a large exclamation mark at the top. Notice of potential noise violation. Ryan stared at her. You printed this yourself, didn't you? Karen lifted her chin proudly. Yes. The HOA hasn't approved it yet, but they will. I like to work ahead. Before he could argue, a voice called from across the street. Everything okay here? It was Mr. Dalton, one of the older neighbors. Friendly man, always polite. He walked slowly toward them, holding his newspaper under his arm. Karen immediately took control of the moment. Oh, Mr. Dalton. I'm glad you're here. We're discussing the noise issues coming from Ryan's house. Ryan opened his mouth. There are no noise. But Karen cut him off. Please don't interrupt, she said, raising a hand. Mr. Dalton frowned. Noise issues? I didn't hear anything. Karen's face twitched. That's because you're too far from the source. I live 2 houses away, he replied. Exactly, she said confidently. The vibrations weaken the farther you go. Ryan stared at her. Karen, this is ridiculous. Mr. Dalton nodded slowly. Karen, are you sure you're not just overthinking this? Karen gasped like he had insulted her intelligence. Overthinking? I am protecting this community. Do you know how dangerous these new screens are? They have ultra pixels. Hypersound. Extra bass waves. Ryan blinked. None of those are real things. But Karen ignored him completely. I won't let this place turn into a chaos zone, she declared. This is a quiet neighborhood. A calm neighborhood. And we will keep it that way. Even if one of us must make sacrifices. Ryan raised an eyebrow. Sacrifices? Like what? Karen stepped closer, lowering her voice like a villain in a movie. You may need to return that TV. Ryan laughed. No. Absolutely not. Karen's expression darkened. Then you leave me no choice. She lifted her notebook again and scribbled something in big letters. Then she snapped it shut and spoke with a dramatic finality. I am calling an emergency HOA meeting. Tonight. Mr. Dalton looked shocked. Tonight? Isn't that too fast? Emergency means emergency, Karen said coldly. This situation cannot wait. Ryan folded his arms. Karen, the TV hasn't even been opened. What exactly are you going to tell them? Karen smiled with a strange confidence. Oh, don't worry. I have a plan. A cold chill ran down Ryan's spine. Karen having a plan was worse than Karen having evidence. She turned and walked away, her sandals clacking loudly on the pavement, her ponytail swinging with power. Mr. Dalton whispered, "Good luck, son. You're gonna need it." Ryan watched Karen disappear into her house like a general preparing for battle. And deep inside, he knew. The real fight was about to begin. The air in the neighborhood felt heavier than ever that evening. Ryan could hear the faint sound of footsteps and whispers as he approached the small community hall. The sign outside read Sunny Oaks HOA meeting, tonight, but the lights flickered like something ominous was about to happen. Inside, the room was packed. Chairs squeaked as neighbors shuffled, murmuring to each other. Some were curious. Some were worried. And some, clearly, were scared of Karen. Karen, of course, arrived like a storm. She wore a crisp white blouse, red scarf, and a pair of glasses that made her look like a general about to deliver orders. Her notebook clutched tightly to her chest, she marched to the front and planted herself behind the podium. Ryan stepped in quietly, trying to stay calm. But the moment Karen saw him, her eyes lit up with that familiar dramatic fire. She adjusted her glasses, cleared her throat, and began her performance. "Ladies and gentlemen of Sunny Oaks," she declared, voice echoing through the small hall. "I come before you tonight with grave concerns about the very safety and peace of our neighborhood." Some neighbors leaned forward. Some leaned back nervously. Ryan felt his stomach tighten. He knew this would be a battle of wits, or at least a battle of Karen's imagination versus reality. Karen opened her notebook with a flourish. Papers fluttered like wings. "I present to you the case of the 75-inch terror," she announced. "I speak of my neighbor, Mr. Ryan, who has dared to bring into our community a television of monstrous proportions." A few neighbors exchanged glances. One whispered, "It's just a TV." Karen ignored them. "This is not just a TV," she continued, pointing at the imaginary danger. "It is a disturbance machine. A generator of vibrations. A threat to our walls, windows, and most importantly, our tranquil lives." Ryan cleared his throat. "Excuse me." Karen whipped around like he had just shouted fire in a crowded theater. "Yes, Mr. Ryan, you may speak," she said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. Ryan took a deep breath. "I haven't even turned the TV on." Karen gasped dramatically, clutching her chest. "Exactly," she exclaimed. "Even the presence of this device is an insult to peace. The potential noise is already affecting me emotionally." A few neighbors stifled giggles. One tried to hide behind a notebook. Ryan tried to stay calm. "Karen, it's just a TV. No sound is coming from it. I haven't even plugged it in yet." Karen's eyes narrowed. "Ah, but you will. And then the vibrations, the ultra-bass waves, the chaos, they will spread through the neighborhood like a storm." Ryan blinked. Ultra-bass waves? Chaos? He wasn't sure whether to laugh or scream. Karen snapped her notebook open again and began pointing to random notes, sketches, and arrows. "Here. Here. Look at these patterns of potential disruption. If this TV is turned on, the community will never be the same." The HOA president, a mild man with a tiny mustache named Mr. Harris, raised a hand. "Karen, maybe we can." Karen cut him off with a sharp glare. "No interruptions. This is urgent." Ryan sighed. This was going to be a long meeting. Karen began pacing, like a courtroom lawyer building a case. "I have spoken to neighbors. I have measured vibrations in the air. I have researched online." She slammed her notebook for emphasis. "Science confirms that oversized TVs, like the 75-inch horror in question, can disturb nearby households." A few people exchanged confused looks. "Is that true?" whispered someone. Ryan felt his frustration rising. He decided to speak calmly. "Karen, can we check the facts?" "No study says a TV can shake a neighborhood." "It's impossible. I haven't even turned it on." Karen's face twisted. "Impossible? Ha! Impossibility is exactly what makes it dangerous. The unknown potential is terrifying." One neighbor, Mrs. Lewis, muttered under her breath, "She's lost it." Karen whipped around. "What did you say?" "Nothing," Mrs. Lewis said quickly. Karen ignored her and continued her dramatic performance. "I am not here to judge. I am here to protect. To protect all of you. You may think I exaggerate, but let me remind you," she raised a finger for effect. "A 75-inch TV can disrupt your peace, your sleep, your mental health, and I, as a responsible member of this community, will not stand idly by." Ryan took another deep breath, trying to stay patient. "Karen, if this is about the TV, we can talk calmly. No need to make it a crisis." Karen's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Calm? Calm has no place here. The danger is imminent." Mr. Harris, finally losing patience, cleared his throat. Karen, maybe we should hear from Mr. Ryan and see the TV first? Karen's jaw dropped. See the TV? Do you want to risk it? Yes, Mr. Harris said firmly. I want to see the facts. Karen's hands shook slightly, but she reluctantly gestured for Ryan to step forward. Ryan walked to the front of the room, trying not to smile. He pointed to the massive box in the corner. There it is, he said simply. Still in the box. Still off. Still completely harmless. A murmur ran through the room. Karen gasped. It's unplugged. Yes, Ryan said calmly. Exactly. Karen froze, notebook clutched to her chest like a shield. Her dramatic energy seemed to vanish for a moment. She opened her mouth, closed it, and muttered, well. The potential. Mr. Harris held up a hand. Karen, let's stop the theatrics. No harm has been done. We can move forward calmly. Karen muttered something under her breath about ultra-bass vibrations and stormed out, leaving the room stunned and whispering. Ryan breathed a deep sigh of relief. For now, the immediate battle was over. But he could already feel it in his gut. This was only the first round. Karen wasn't finished. And the 75-inch TV? It had just become the symbol of a neighborhood war that was only getting started. The next morning, Ryan woke up to an unusual calm. The sun peeked through the blinds, birds chirped in the distance, and for a moment, he almost forgot about Karen and her dramatic war against his TV. Almost. Because as soon as he stepped outside to get the newspaper, he saw Karen standing in her driveway, binoculars pressed to her eyes like a spy in a movie. Her notebook rested on the hood of her car, ready to record every movement. Ryan sighed. She never sleeps, he muttered under his breath. But this time, Karen looked different. Excited. Determined. Dangerous. She had a new plan. And he could see it in the way she was holding a stack of papers, printed, colored, underlined, highlighted, and bound together like a professional case file. Ryan's stomach tightened. Karen had brought evidence. Morning, Ryan, she called cheerfully, as if she hadn't just accused him of neighborhood terrorism. I'm here to collect proof that your television is a threat. Ryan blinked. Proof? You mean, like seeing the TV plugged in? Karen shook her head furiously. No. Visual confirmation is weak. I need scientific proof. She handed him a strange little device that looked like a thermometer crossed with a radio. This, she explained, is a vibration and noise detector. I bought it online. Very precise. Very professional. Ryan held the device carefully, pretending to understand. And, this will show that my TV is dangerous? Karen nodded so hard her ponytail swung. Exactly. Even potential vibrations are detectable. Ryan looked at the TV box in his living room. It hadn't moved an inch. Still wrapped in tape. Still silent. Still completely harmless. Karen, of course, did not care. She was already pacing the driveway, murmuring into her notebook. 9 to 12 a.m., potential vibration detected. Maybe from fridge. Ignore fridge, still a threat. Ryan blinked. Ignore the fridge? What does that even mean? Karen waved her hands. The point is, I feel it. And my device agrees with me. Device? Ryan said. It's just picking up the wind. Karen gasped, clutching her chest. Wind? No. Wind is a symptom. It carries the energy of large televisions. Don't you understand? Before Ryan could respond, Karen marched across the lawn to the neighbors' houses, clipboard raised. Witnesses, she shouted. I need witnesses. Everyone who feels threatened by this monstrous device, come forward. Some neighbors peeked out from behind curtains. A few brave ones walked over, curious. One older man muttered, It's just a box. Karen didn't hear him. She was too busy taking readings with her little device, which beeped occasionally at random, probably because of static electricity. Ryan decided to intervene. He gently approached her. Karen, can we check this together? The TV hasn't even been turned on. This machine isn't detecting anything real. Karen spun around like a storm had hit her. Check together? No. I must protect the neighborhood. One of the neighbors finally spoke up. Karen, it's still in the box. I don't hear anything. Karen shook her head. You are too far to perceive the vibrations. It's subtle but deadly. Ryan, trying to keep calm, suggested a demonstration. Fine. Let's do a test. I'll move the box a little. You can take a reading. Then you'll see there's nothing harmful here. Karen's eyes narrowed. Move the box? Are you insane? That could release the danger. It's too risky. Ryan sighed. He realized logic would not work. Karen was lost in her own world, a world where a television could shake walls and minds alike. Finally, she decided to enter the house herself, waving the device dramatically. I must gather evidence inside. For the community. Ryan reluctantly allowed it. Karen tiptoed in like a secret agent, scanning the room, pointing at the TV box, muttering warnings about energy waves and psychic vibrations. She even placed the device on top of the box. It beeped once. Karen's eyes widened. See? It's alive. It's testing its power. Ryan tried not to laugh. Karen, it's still off. Karen ignored him. She scribbled notes, took imaginary readings, and whispered urgently to herself. We are under threat, the neighborhood is at risk, vibrations are potential. After what felt like hours, she finally stormed out, notebook filled with scribbles, hair messy, and face red from exertion. She turned to Ryan with a triumphant glare. I have my proof. The neighborhood is in danger. The HOA will finally listen to me. Ryan held the device. It had a single beep and a weak red light that blinked once. This is your proof? Karen glared. Exactly. Science confirms it. Ryan shook his head, smiling despite himself. Karen, you are unbelievable. Karen marched back to her house, muttering about reports, evidence, and next steps. Ryan watched her go, realizing something important. No matter what he did, Karen was determined. And she would stop at nothing until she felt the neighborhood had been protected from a television that hadn't even been turned on. And deep down, Ryan knew the battle over the 75-inch TV was far from over. After the proof incident, Ryan thought he could finally relax. He imagined a peaceful evening with his unopened 75-inch TV, popcorn, and maybe a movie later that week. He was wrong. Dead wrong. Because Karen had entered a new phase. Karen was no longer just complaining. She had declared herself the official neighborhood investigator, the guardian of peace, and the self-appointed sheriff of Sunny Oaks. And her target? Ryan. That morning, Ryan stepped outside to grab the mail. At first, he thought it was a coincidence. Then he saw Karen crouched behind a bush across the street, notebook in hand, binoculars around her neck, and a walkie-talkie clipped to her belt. Ryan froze. Karen's eyes scanned the street. She scribbled furiously, muttering under her breath. Suspicious activity, possible vibrations, television, danger. Ryan waved casually. Karen didn't notice. She was too busy marking every detail about him. Later that day, as Ryan watered his plants, he noticed strange things happening. A small drone hovered briefly above his backyard. He blinked. Karen was inside the drone, controlling it like a top-secret surveillance mission. Someone had taped a tiny measuring device to the wall facing his house. A sticky note said, "Detect vibrations, watch for ultra-bass waves." Ryan laughed nervously. Ultra-bass waves? Really? He decided to confront her. Karen! What are you doing now? Karen jumped slightly, pretending to be casual. Just checking the community safety. 4. Science. Ryan raised an eyebrow. Science? Yes, she said, pointing at the tiny device on his wall. This measures the vibrations from your potential TV. Community first, Ryan. Ryan shook his head. It's not even on. Karen's expression turned deadly serious. Potential vibrations are more dangerous than actual vibrations. Don't you see? Ryan realized he was arguing with someone who had invented their own rules of reality. The next day, things escalated further. Karen began spying day and night. She hid in bushes across the street. Took photos of Ryan entering and leaving his house. Wrote suspiciously long reports about his daily routines. Even started timing how long he took in the kitchen, noting possible snack preparation for ultra-base experiments. Ryan felt like he was living in a spy movie. Every step he took was logged in Karen's imaginary community threat report. One evening, Ryan tried to leave for a quick grocery run. As he opened the car door, Karen appeared from nowhere, holding a small, handheld sound meter. This, she said dramatically, will detect the ambient noise from your television, before it even makes noise. Ryan blinked. Ambient noise, before it even exists? Karen nodded seriously. Exactly. Prevention is key. You may think this is extreme, but the neighborhood depends on me. He sighed and got into the car, realizing she would follow him if she could. Karen didn't stop there. She started measuring the angle of his blinds. The sun reflecting off the TV box could blind neighbors. Dangerous. Inspecting his lawn. Grass too green. Grass height suggests chaos. Talking to his dog through the fence. I'm observing your behavior. Any unusual barking may indicate TV-related disturbances. Ryan began to feel like his life had become a bizarre reality show, one where Karen was both the villain and the overzealous director. But the funniest and scariest moment came one night. Ryan was sitting in his living room, TV still in the box, reading a book. Suddenly, he heard faint noises outside, scratching, whispering, and a soft hum of determination. He peeked through the blinds and saw Karen crawling along the edge of his yard on all fours, notebook in hand, pretending to be a secret agent on a stealth mission. Her mission? To collect evidence of potential TV vibrations. Ryan couldn't believe his eyes. He laughed, but it was mixed with fear. Karen was fully committed. The next morning, Ryan found a stack of sticky notes on his mailbox. Monitor TV potential vibrations. Check energy waves from box. Observe neighbors' reactions. He crumpled the notes and muttered, "This is insane." Yet he knew one thing: Karen's investigation was unstoppable. She had become the neighborhood's full-time detective, and he was the only suspect. Ryan decided to plan his strategy. He could ignore her for now, but the next step in her war could be unpredictable. She might go to the HOA, gather more neighbors, or even attempt a full nighttime stakeout. And deep down, Ryan knew one undeniable truth: Karen would not rest until the 75-inch TV and he were under total control. It was no longer about a simple TV. It was about a neighborhood obsession. A comedy of errors. A suspenseful, slightly terrifying, very real battle between logic and paranoia. Ryan leaned back in his chair and sighed. He had survived her proof raid. He had survived her binocular mission. He had survived her drone reconnaissance. But he also knew the war was far from over. Karen was relentless, creative, and impossible to reason with. The 75-inch TV had not even been turned on yet. And the real chaos was just beginning. The neighborhood had been buzzing with rumors all morning. Everyone was whispering about Ryan's 75-inch TV and Karen's latest investigation. By noon, it was the main topic of conversation at the local coffee shop. Even the barista was rolling her eyes as she handed over a latte. Inside her house, Karen was in full war mode. Her desk was buried under stacks of papers, charts, sticky notes, and her beloved notebook. There were graphs she had drawn herself, measuring potential vibrations, ultrabass waves, and psychic disturbance levels. She had even taped a small diagram of Ryan's living room to the wall, labeling every object like a crime scene. Karen took a deep breath. Today was the day of the big reveal. She had prepared her evidence dossier for the HOA meeting. She imagined the shocked faces, the gasps of horror, the applause for her vigilance. The neighborhood would finally recognize her as the hero she truly was. Ryan, meanwhile, had no idea. He had gone to the community hall, thinking this would be a routine HOA discussion. He expected maybe 1 or 2 complaints. Instead, Karen had turned it into a full-blown trial. The meeting began. Karen stepped to the front, holding her evidence folder like it was a golden trophy. The HOA president, Mr. Harris, looked uneasy. He had dealt with Karen before, and he knew her dramatic flair could turn any small issue into a neighborhood spectacle. Karen began her presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, today I bring you undeniable proof. Proof that our community has been under silent attack by a 75-inch menace. She slammed the folder on the table. Papers flew everywhere. A few neighbors ducked instinctively. Ryan whispered under his breath, "It's still in the box." Karen ignored him. She opened the folder and began presenting charts, graphs, and suspiciously red-highlighted notes. "These recordings were taken over the past week," she said. "Observe the patterns of disturbance." She handed out sheets of paper to the HOA board. Ryan looked over them. To his horror and amusement, the evidence consisted of a shaky recording of a dog barking next door, traffic noises from the street, a mysterious low hum that Karen claimed came from Ryan's TV, but in reality, was the refrigerator in her own kitchen. Notes with phrases like "felt vibrations through soul" and "potential chaos observed." Ryan tried not to laugh. He almost whispered, "This is insane." Karen continued, completely oblivious. "The neighborhood is in danger. Look at these graphs. Every spike, every line proves my point." One HOA member, Mrs. Thompson, squinted at a graph. "Karen, that spike at 9:30 a.m., that's when my cat jumped on my windowsill." Karen waved her hand dismissively. "Exactly. The vibrations scared your cat. My point proven." Ryan took a deep breath and raised his hand. "Karen, if I may, none of this is actually from my TV. It's either background noise, normal household sounds, or imaginary vibrations." Karen gasped. "Imaginary? You underestimate the power of technology." Mr. Harris, clearly exasperated, leaned forward. "Karen, perhaps we should verify this evidence before making decisions." Karen looked horrified. "Verify? You mean, check reality?" "No. We must act preemptively. The danger is imminent." Ryan finally stepped forward. "I'll show you. The TV is still in the box. It hasn't been turned on. There's literally no noise." Karen's dramatic pause was epic. She stared at the box, then at Ryan, then at the board. "Impossible," she whispered. Ryan carefully lifted the lid of the TV box, revealing the untouched, silent television. The room fell silent. The HOA members stared. Karen's face went pale. She opened her mouth, then closed it, then muttered something incoherent about the potential. Mr. Harris cleared his throat. "Karen, it seems your evidence doesn't actually prove any disturbance." Karen's hands shook. "Well, perhaps it is subtle." Mrs. Thompson chuckled. "Subtle? It's a box. Nothing is happening." Karen's eyes darted around. She scribbled furiously in her notebook. "The community must still be warned. There may be latent energy. Hidden vibrations." Ryan shook his head. "Karen, it's over. The board sees the truth now." Karen stomped her foot dramatically. "No. The neighborhood is in danger. This cannot be ignored." One board member finally spoke up. "Karen, you've gone too far. You need to stop harassing your neighbors and focus on real issues." Karen's jaw dropped. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her notebook fell from her hands. Ryan finally breathed a sigh of relief. For the first time in days, he felt the tension ease. Karen had brought her big reveal and it had backfired spectacularly. As Karen stormed out, muttering about future threats and hidden vibrations, the room erupted into whispered laughter. Neighbors exchanged knowing glances. Ryan smiled, realizing he had survived Karen's latest dramatic act. He walked home slowly, thinking about the absurdity of the situation. He could finally almost relax. But deep inside, he knew one thing: Karen had not truly given up. She might have failed this time, but she was creative, relentless, and obsessed. And the 75-inch TV, it had become the symbol of a neighborhood legend in the making. The war wasn't over. It was just paused. And Ryan knew the final chapter, the twist ending, was coming. After the dramatic HOA meeting, Ryan finally thought he could breathe. The TV was still in its box, untouched, and Karen had been officially warned by the board to stop harassing neighbors. For a moment, he imagined peace. A week without drama, without fake vibrations, without surveillance. He placed the box carefully in his living room, closed the blinds, and sat down with a cup of coffee. He had survived Karen's obsession, her scientific investigations, her drone reconnaissance, and her nightly stakeouts. Surely, this chapter was over. But Ryan underestimated one thing: Karen never truly gives up. That evening, as Ryan prepared to finally open his TV, a soft knock echoed at his door. He froze. It was almost too quiet to be normal, yet loud enough to make him tense. He peeked through the peephole and saw Karen standing there, holding a small plate of cookies. Ryan blinked. "Cookies," he whispered. Karen smiled innocently. "I thought, maybe, we could watch a movie together. You know, since your TV is very large." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Watch a movie, together?" Karen nodded enthusiastically. "Yes. Community bonding. Plus, I never really saw what a 75-inch TV looks like when it's on. For science." Ryan hesitated. Could this be a trap? Another investigation disguised as peace offering? His gut said yes. His brain screamed yes. But a small part of him, curious, tired of fighting, said maybe, just maybe, it was over. He opened the door slowly. "Okay, fine. But just this once." Karen's face lit up like a child on Christmas morning. She practically danced into the living room, still holding the plate of cookies. She carefully set them on the coffee table, then sat down as if she had always belonged there. Ryan cautiously plugged in the TV. The screen flickered to life. The colors were vibrant, the sound crisp, and the sheer size of the screen was mesmerizing. Karen leaned forward, her eyes wide. "Wow, it's huge. Like a window to another world." Ryan chuckled. "That's a 75-inch TV for you." For a few minutes, the room was silent except for the sound of the movie. Karen watched intently, occasionally whispering comments about the colors, the sound, and potential vibrations, but this time, it was playful rather than accusatory. Ryan finally relaxed. Maybe, just maybe, Karen had changed. Then, in the middle of a dramatic scene in the movie, Karen gasped and jumped up. "Ryan," she shouted. "Did you see that? That car explosion. The vibrations. The chaos." Ryan laughed nervously. "It's a movie, Karen. It's fake." Karen nodded seriously. "Exactly. And that proves what I was saying all along. Movies are dangerous. TVs are dangerous. Vibrations are everywhere. Science confirms it." Ryan facepalmed. He couldn't win. Karen had officially merged reality and fiction into one unstoppable force. But then, the twist came. Karen paused, looked around the living room, and suddenly softened. Her dramatic energy drained slightly. You know, she said quietly, this TV, it's kind of amazing. Maybe I overreacted. Ryan stared at her. Wait, what? Karen shrugged. I mean, it's just so big. And colorful. And fun. I didn't know watching something could feel like a tiny adventure. Ryan blinked. So, you're saying? Karen nodded. I'm saying, maybe your 75-inch TV isn't a threat. Maybe it's safe. Ryan almost laughed in disbelief. After days of spying, accusing, and drama, Karen was admitting the truth. For the first time in a week, Ryan felt genuine relief. So, we're good? Karen smiled softly. Yes, for now. But I reserve the right to monitor potential popcorn overconsumption. Ryan laughed. Deal. They sat back down. Ryan poured 2 glasses of soda, handed one to Karen, and they watched the rest of the movie in peace. No accusations, no fake vibrations, no drones, no notebooks. Just a giant TV and a tiny truce. As the credits rolled, Karen looked at Ryan and whispered dramatically, next time, if you ever buy a bigger TV, I will be ready. Ryan chuckled. I'll keep that in mind. Then, Karen added with a wink, but maybe I'll also bring cookies. Ryan laughed, realizing that Karen had changed, at least a little. She hadn't completely lost her edge, but somehow, her obsession had turned into a funny, harmless quirk. And the neighborhood? Well, they could finally stop whispering about the 75-inch menace. At least, until Karen found her next adventure. Ryan leaned back, smiled, and thought. Life in this neighborhood is never boring, especially with Karen next door. And somewhere deep inside, he knew one truth, the 75-inch TV had survived the ultimate test of paranoia and humor.